our voice in the world.
This is the English service of Radio Algeria International. It's time for the news.
In today's top stories, here in Algiers, the visiting representative of the NATO Parliamentary Assembly delegation, Fernando Adolfo Gutierrez, has affirmed Algiers' pivotal role in safeguarding security in the region. Republican Donald Trump has won the U.S. presidential election in a stunning comeback after a turbulent and defiant campaign against Kamala Harris. At least 20 people have been killed in an Israeli strike on an apartment building south of Beirut at a time when the occupation bombardment has not stopped. This is Radio Algeria International. Hello and welcome. The President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, received the Archbishop of Algiers, Jean-Paul Vesco, in Algiers. The meeting took place in the presence of the Director of the Office of the President of the Republic, Mr. Boualem Boualem, and the Minister of Religious Affairs, Mr. Youssef Belmehdi. President Tebboune has conducted a partial reshuffle in the body of governors and their delegates in accordance with the provisions of Article 92 of the Constitution. The President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, has received here in Algiers a joint delegation of the Special Group for the Mediterranean and Middle East of the Security and Democracy Commission and the Sub-Commission for Resilience and Civil Security under the jurisdiction of the NATO Parliamentary Assembly. The meeting took place in the presence of the Speaker of the Council of the Nation, Salah Goujil, the Chief of the Staff of the National People's Army, Army General Said Shingriha, the Director of Cabinet in the Presidency of the Republic, Boualem Boualem, and the Chairman of the National Defense Commission at the Council of the Nation, Aissa Naili. Majid Mila has more details.
At the end of his meeting with the President of the Republic, Abdelmajid Tebboune, the representative of the NATO Parliamentary Assembly delegation, Fernando Adolfo Gutierrez, has affirmed that Algeria plays a pivotal role in safeguarding security in the region. Mr. Fernando stated that he and the President discussed the issue of the preservation of the security and defense of the borders of the huge Algerian territory. He went on to say that the security of the northern Mediterranean countries was linked to the security of the southern Mediterranean countries. In addition, the NATO representative indicated that he exchanged views with his colleagues of the Council of the Nation and the National People's Assembly on different issues, notably immigration, terrorism, energy, and other questions of common interest. It's worth recalling that the visiting NATO delegation is made up of 30 parliamentarians representing 13 NATO member states.
The Minister of Foreign Affairs and the National Community Abroad, Ahmed Attaf, has received the visiting NATO delegation with whom he exchanged views and analyses on the current issues of the regional and international levels, notably the situation in the Middle East. Asya Bikar has the details.
The Speaker of the Council of the Nation, Salah Goujil, discussed with the visiting NATO delegation the main political, economic and security issues besetting the Mediterranean region and the means of strengthening regional parliamentary cooperation in order to address the major challenges facing its peoples. Mr. Goujil said that the Mediterranean culture cherishes dialogue, peaceful coexistence and partnership and rejects exclusion, intolerance and racism. He deplored the security and ethical issues that marked the region, notably violence, terrorism, colonialism, genocide and forced displacement in Gaza and the occupied Palestinian territories. He welcomed the cooperation and coordination initiatives carried out by parliamentary organizations in the Mediterranean region and called for their strengthening for the benefit of the peoples of the region on both shores and to prioritize the interests of vulnerable peoples and respect international law, in particular international humanitarian law. The Speaker of the National People's Assembly, Ibrahim Boghali, for his part, discussed with the NATO delegation several questions of common interest between the two bodies and issues related to current international affairs, notably the political and environmental situation situation in the Mediterranean region, decolonization, the fight against terrorism and organized crime, political, economic and security challenges in the African Sahel region, and climate change.
The deputy chairman of the National People's Assembly, Ahsan Hani, has met in Caracas, Venezuela, with the chairman of the Venezuelan National Assembly, Jorge Rodriguez Gomez, on the sidelines of the World Parliamentary Forum Against Fascism and Neo-Fascism. During this meeting, the two parties discussed several international issues of common concern, chief among them the two just causes, the Palestinian and Sahrawi causes. After a turbulent and defiant campaign against Kamala Harris, Donald Trump is becoming the country's 47th president. Majid Mila.
Republican Donald Trump has won the U.S. presidential election in a stunning comeback, with his projected victory in Wisconsin clearing the 270 electoral votes needed to secure a return to the White House. Speaking in West Palm Beach, Florida, before the latest results came in, Trump pledged to bring what he labeled as a golden age to the United States, praising what he called the greatest political movement of all time, as he put it. The Democratic rival Kamala Harris has not conceded and is expected to speak later in the day. World leaders rushed to congratulate Trump on Wednesday as votes were still being counted after early projected wins in key battleground states. The re-election of Donald Trump comes amid the current Israeli wages wars on Palestinian territories in Lebanon. Many Arab and Muslim Americans, as well as other pro-Palestinian progressives, hold the administration of President Joe Biden and his Vice President Kamala Harris responsible for not doing more to stop the bloodshed. Many said they could not vote for Kamala Harris in the election, even if Republican candidate Donald Trump has firmly been in the pro-Israel camp. That has led to a fierce debate over what the best course of election, those who want the Israeli occupation to be forced to stop its genocide on the Palestinians and Lebanese.
The Israeli occupation Premier Netanyahu has sacked his defense minister Yoav Gallant, reflecting an internal conflict within the Israeli government over the handling of the current war in the Middle East. Such a decision amid the current Israeli aggression against Gaza, the West Bank and Lebanon mirrors the Israeli government's struggle in managing the multi-front wars it decided to wage against different parts in the Middle East. Subjected to a genocidal aggression for more than a year, the Gaza Strip is facing an increase in premature births and maternal deaths, warns the United Nations, deeming the situation in the Palestinian enclave as catastrophic. According to the United Nations agency in charge of sexual and reproductive health agency, many women are forced to give birth without access to medical support. More details in this report by Saeed Bouhazi.
Sexual and reproductive health care, including postnatal and family planning services, has become very limited for 155,000 pregnant and breastfeeding women. These women face serious health risks due to the lack of antenatal and postnatal care. Complicated and high-risk pregnancies linked to negative results have increased, while access to safe birthing facilities has decreased considerably, particularly in the north. In addition, transport problems and a shortage of medical staff exacerbated the crisis. In addition, women and young girls face increased risks due to overcrowded shelters and inadequate sanitation facilities. Infections are on the increase, with 25% of women suffer from skin infections and other health problems. Menstrual hygiene has also become virtually unmanageable, as more than 690,000 menstruating women have no access to basic sanitary supplies. The cost of essential items such as soap has risen by 1,100%, making hygiene impossible and increasing women's vulnerability to violence and exploitation. This UNFPA alert comes at a time when the Zionist aggression has claimed more than 43,000 martyrs and nearly 1.9 million displaced persons, often repeatedly, including more than 43,000 pregnant women. In addition, around 70% of Gaza's infrastructure has been destroyed, leaving almost the entire population without food, drinking water, healthcare, and or without basic shelter. The health system in Gaza has almost collapsed, with half the hospitals out of action. In the remaining 17 hospitals, only minimal services are available, including maternity care, due to a lack of essential resources, including supplies. In northern Gaza, only 2 of the 20 health service points and 2 hospitals, Kamal Adwan and El Auda, both of which provide emergency obstetric care, are still partially functioning, as they are struggling to function without supplies, fuel, food or water.
The director of Kamal Adwan Hospital, Dr. Hussam Abu Safia, has spoken to Radio Algeria International about the atrocities witnessed overnight at the hospital.
The situation is still dangerous. The situation is still bad. The embargo is still imposed on northern part of Gaza. They prevent the entry of the medical aids to Gaza. They also prevent the entry of the medical teams. No food, no water are allowed in. We are living a real genocidal situation. We have more than 150 affected patients undergoing medical care with simple means. We called on the international community, but unfortunately nobody heard us. Thus, without the humanitarian aid, the hospital will be transformed to a mass grave.
That was the director of Adwan Hospital, Dr. Hussam Abu Safia. The Deputy Special Coordinator for Middle East Peace Process, Muhannad Hadi, has visited the El Mamounia school in northern Gaza, sheltering more than 1,500 displaced persons. Mr. Hadi described what he saw as beyond imagination, with sewage and waste everywhere.
At this school, I have seen families and people staying on top of each other. It is unbearable here. I can't imagine how those people are surviving. There were 500 people in this school in September, and now there are more than 1,500 people. There are no access to bathroom. There is shortages of food. The situation is unbearable. Sewage water everywhere. The waste is everywhere. The place has garbage everywhere. This is not a place for humans to survive. This must end. This misery must end. This war must end. This is beyond imagination. What people are going through here, no one can tolerate.
That was the Deputy Special Coordinator for Middle East Peace Process, Muhannad Hadi. At least 20 people have been killed in an Israeli strike on an apartment building south of Beirut at a time when the occupation bombardment has not stopped. This was the second Zionist strike against this region on Tuesday. Earlier, a strike also targeting a residential building in the locality of Jia near Barja killed 1 person. Now to the Western Sahara file. The Association of the Friends of the Sahrawi Arab Democratic Republic in France will be holding a conference on the 22nd of November on the Sahrawi cause to shed light on the latest decisions of the Court of Justice of the European Union and the consequences of the blind support for Morocco in its expansionist policy in Western Sahara. Saeed Bougazi has the details.
This solidarity conference, which will be held in the municipality of Clairsigny-Le Mans under the sign Rights of Peoples and Sovereignty over their natural resources, the case of Western Sahara, will be led by the lawyer of the Sahrawi Republic, specialist in international law and defender of the rights of peoples, Gilles de Vere, and the representative of the Sahrawi Republic to Switzerland, the United Nations and international organizations in Geneva, Oubi Boushraya El-Bashir. In a statement to APS, Oubi Boushraya El-Bashir explained that this conference comes in a special context marked by 2 flagship events. The first concerns the decisions of the EU Court of Justice of October 4th invalidating the agreement signed between Morocco and the European Union because they illegally included Western Sahara, a territory distinct from Morocco, without the consent of the Sahrawi people, which is a blatant violation of previous decisions of the European Court of Justice. The second event, he adds, concerns the recognition by the French president of Morocco's alleged sovereignty over Western Sahara and France's adherence to an economic partnership with Morocco to plunder the riches of Western Sahara. The main aim of the conference is to highlight the decisions of the EU Court of Justice and their political, legal and economic repercussions not only on Morocco but also on the European Union as a bloc, and particularly on France, which is preparing to ignore them. According to the Sahrawi diplomat, this event is also intended to raise awareness of the French public opinion and French consumers in particular to the consequences of France's intention to transgress the laws of the EU in order to help Morocco continue its occupation of Western Sahara. The conference will not confine itself to the legal aspect but will also warn France against the risks of its absolute support for Morocco in its expansionist approach to Western Sahara.
You're still listening to Radio Algeria International. Back to Algeria, the 27th edition of the Algiers International Book Fair known as SILA has been inaugurated at the exhibition hall here in Algiers. The book fair will be open to visitors as of tomorrow, Thursday, until November 16, with the participation of 1,007 publishing houses from 40 countries, with Qatar as guest of honor. This is Radio Algeria International. Stay tuned.
Our Talk, a weekly program with guests activating in different fields.